We
Hello,
are
all. We are
live.
live, and Jonathan,
we are
let's
live.
speak together, and it makes it very nice. Anyway, Jonathan, go for it. We're live, as you can
We're
tell.
live. Then this is a short one, so probably won't have too many people in the room with us, but hopefully it'll accrue some views later when the clickbaity headline sort of gets added to it. I'm going to an event this evening in London. It's going to be fascinating. I'm going to tell the audience about it later, but for now we've got a very short, punchy episode. The theme that I chose is, and we're still continuing yesterday's, which is following the quite remarkable King's speech to Congress, which I've dissected a bit more, and there's some really interesting stuff in there. But what really struck me was the face of Vance and also the hypocrisy of the people in the room. Most people, and I watched Anthony Scaramucci about this, and I must say he was extremely humorous about this. He said that you've got sort of MAGA Mike Johnson, the arch sycophant, barking like a seal, clapping, absolutely ecstatic to be part of this. And then at one moment he looks down at Vance and he's like, why aren't you barking like a seal and clapping as well? I don't get it. But I think there's a really interesting point here. Vance is intelligent enough to understand what those messages meant and not be totally enthralled by the glory of majesty and all this kind of pomp and circumstance. Now he was probably listening to the words and thinking like, this guy's telling us that we've gone wrong. This guy is delivering quite a cutting statement on where we are. He's basically come to America in the 250th anniversary of liberation, and he's saying basically that you guys kicked us out, and this is Scaramucci's words, you guys kicked us out because you had certain ideals. Those ideals are worth fighting for, and hey, the King of England has come to remind America of its founding principles in the 250th anniversary of its founding quite clearly, because there is the perception that you have moved very, very far away from those ideals and are accelerating further from them at pace. It's an extraordinary, I think this will go down as an extraordinary historical moment. And Vance seemed to be the only person who in the room who really got it, and his sour little face told you a lot.
Well, I mean, J.D. Vance, I don't know if Trump picked him for this reason, but he is one of a sect within the MAGA sect that really believe in the true, Christian nationalism. He truly believes that America was not founded on an idea, which, that's not the most common view. Most Americans that know anything about it still believe that America, the American experiment, was an idea which constantly evolves. J.D. Vance belongs to a sect, like I said, within the very far right extremist wing of MAGA that doesn't believe that it was an idea. In fact, he gave a speech about that. He said, America is not an idea, it's a nation. And we need to start behaving like a nation. It's a nation of white Christians or European Christians. So he's made it very clear what he believes in. And you're right, he's smart. I mean, he's an Ivy League educated lawyer, although he wrote that book, Hillbilly Elegy, tried to make him seem like, down home. He's not down home. He's very smart in an evil kind of a way. So, yeah, the very not so subtle remarks made by the King of England did not rub him the right way. So, no, he was very dour-faced and didn't applaud at all. I have to say one thing about...
Here's another phrase. Yeah. Well, you say another thing, and then I'll ask you to react to something.
Well, it actually, it's not really related to this. I just want to let folks know we do have to cut this short today, this episode, because you just told me before we went on the air that you've got a reservation on the Orient Express. And so
yes, that's it.
I hope you enjoy
I'm dressed
that
for it as well,
Well, yeah,
I've got
tell
my
us all
favorite
about
T-shirt
it
on. And
oh, there you go. Well, tell us all about it when you return. Please continue on with more serious thoughts.
No, there's a lovely event in London this evening. I'll tell the audience all about it, but very, very interesting one. It's another guest I hope to get on the channel. Yes. More of an academic kind of one, but someone who...
J.D. Vance and Colby and their nonsense.
I mean, if I can get them on the channel, I can stick it to them. That's great, and they're never going to appear. But that's no.
No.
And so before we get on to Vance and Colby, here's the other thing, because something Vance said in an interview, and I think it might have been on Fox or Betamax or whatever the hell it's called. But he was asked about the founding of America, and he made this distinction between immigrants, which, let's face it, everyone was an immigrant, but he said there were immigrants and there were the colonialists, as if somehow there's a first class and a second class, a first tier and a second tier. One presumes subtext there is the white Christian Mayflower comes into the first tier and somehow has racial superiority over the native inhabitants, as well as the brown and black people that came afterwards, and Chinese and whatever. Anyway, I'll let you unpack it, because that struck me as an extraordinarily racist, imperialist concept, which he snuck into this interview.
Let me follow that right up with a movement that's gaining traction here, which is the removal or the erasure of or some part of the Constitution, calling for the end of birthright citizenship, which is exactly what you're talking about. The far right wing of MAGA wants to do away with the birthright citizenship part of the Constitution, which means if you're born in this country on the shores of the United States of America, doesn't matter the status of your parents, what they look like, where they came from, their religion, none of that. You're born here, you're an American citizen. They want to do away with that because obviously, like you just said, they only want America for white Christian Americans. Not only white Christian Americans who believe in their racist ideology and dogma. So they want the ability in law to change the Constitution, where even if you're born here, you do not have an automatic right to American citizenship. That citizenship can be revoked, and you can even be deported. They're trying to do this with other Americans, citizens right now that were born here generations ago, not just recently from their immigrant parents. So this is all about Christian nationalism, Jonathan. It was subtle before, years ago, but this has been in the works for many, many years. MAGA has just torn the veil off of the rabid Christian nationalism that's always been there under the surface with Republicans, but MAGA has just taken it to new extremes. And it's, in my opinion, of course, very, very dangerous and un-American, going all the way back to our roots in the late 18th century.
It's an extraordinary thing, isn't it? It's absolutely extraordinary. But let's turn to Colby and Vance, because Vance has said he's very proud of not helping Ukraine. Zelensky said something very interesting here, and it goes back to Hannah Arendt and the idea that non-resistance to evil is actually capitulating to evil, is enabling evil and ultimately allowing it to triumph. And you've got the Vance-Zelensky comments here. Vance said he's proud of not supporting Ukraine. And Zelensky basically said, well, if you're not supporting Ukraine, you're supporting Russia, whether it's active or passive by default. And it comes back to that idea of tolerating evil. And I'm going to stick this out there. Vance is on the side of evil. He's not on the side of history. And he's absolutely aligned with Russia, as is Hegseth, from his comments, his tie, from various things he's said and done, and the ludicrous Russian propaganda he regurgitates, and using it as a stick to beat Biden. I mean, he's a ludicrous character, but there are things under the surface that tell us about conversations, that tell us about a worldview, that tell us that Colby, Vance, Hegseth are absolutely aligned with helping Russia to win, with helping evil to triumph, with helping genocide to triumph. These are the trinity of the real, for me, evil faces there. I mean, Stephen Miller doesn't seem to really be too concerned with foreign policy, from what I can tell. He's more concerned with the white nationalist racist agenda we've talked about. Yeah. But these three characters, they really do seem to be part of some kind of internal axis of evil within the Trump administration, specifically wanting Ukraine to lose. And this is the essence of their foreign policy over the last year and a bit.
Well, I know that not nobody, but many people do not want anyone to try to compare the Trump administration to Nazi Germany. I don't care about those people. There's so many parallels. You have to be a fool not to recognize the similarities. And you mentioned Stephen Miller, one of my very favorite people. Yes, you're right. He's kind of laser focused on the racist, if you will, Aryan ideology, where he hates anyone who is not a white Christian nationalist. But doesn't that fit into I hate to say it, Nazi Germany? They were those within that hierarchy that were focused on the military, on foreign policy, and there were others that were focused on the final solution, on just hating Jews, hating any non-Aryan type of people. So Stephen Miller fits into that perfectly. He leaves the ruinous foreign policy to others who probably are smarter than him, which is not very difficult. And he focuses on the racist part of it, the Christian nationalist part of it. So I think they fit together very well.
And we should point out, of course, that Stephen Miller is Jewish, and this seems to be the ultimate perversion, in fact, of aligning herself with a worldview, which in my mind actually goes against a lot of Jewish teaching, a lot of Jewish culture, which is actually has a high degree of tolerance, diversity, humor embedded in it, as well as sort of core identities built on, I say, open intellectual discussions about various issues, including metaphysical ones. He just does not seem to exemplify anything that I associate with Jewish traditions, and he's aligning himself with a grotesque ideology, which in another context was used to erase Jews from Europe. So this is a kind of absurdity which you couldn't even invent, really.
Self-loathing. But one of the hallmarks of MAGA, Jonathan, really, to me, maybe the number one, aside from their evil agenda, is hypocrisy. They are the most Hippocratic group of individuals, in my opinion, that I've ever seen in my life. They take that to new lows. I was going to say to new heights. And Miller is, a poster boy for that. He is so full of hate, but self-loathing. I think most of it's generated inward, and he just projects that outward. He's a perfect fit, though. I mean, I don't want to call him a Himmler, but I'll call him a Himmler. I mean, he's just perfect. Well, he looks like more or less like a bald Goebbels, but either way, I think it would be a good fit.
And they seem to be consciously turning to Ukraine. You've got Colby withdrawing support, although the blowback is so huge, it seems the Pentagon is now releasing those funds. But they're trying to do everything they possibly can to prevent armaments, money, support for Ukraine. Some people say, oh, yeah, but didn't they, get the intelligence through? Behind the scenes, you can see a real tussle going on. And I don't think it's necessarily the Trump regime giving Ukraine intelligence. It's people that are still within the system getting away with what they can get away with. When it becomes, the costs become significant, or people in the administration who don't like it notice, they shut that down. They're trying to shut allies down, like the UK, that is providing extraordinary intelligence. And they're trying to put pressure on commercial entities that provide this intelligence for a commercial basis to stop that going to allies, to go to Ukraine as well. For those who are still either looking at the Trump regime as sort of their position as either neutral or, dare I say, even positive, I have to say the tendency is all been in one direction, which is to try to bring about a Ukrainian defeat. Yes. So they can jump into bed with Russia and crack on with making money and appeasing evil. That's my absolute simplest take on what's going on.
American support for Ukraine is done. If anybody has any illusions that it's just been paused, or like you said, there's some intelligence sharing still going on, or it's in the pipeline and it's going to get to Ukraine a little bit later, or it's going to flow through Europe and NATO, get over it. American support for Ukraine is done. It hasn't been very good for a long time, but under this administration at this time, it's done because, as Jonathan just said, they've totally aligned themselves with the Kremlin. And we can speculate endlessly why that is, whether they're getting paid, whether they're getting funding, whether they're getting political support, all of the above. It doesn't matter. They are apparatchiks of the Kremlin. And one of the main goals that they have is to destroy Ukraine, to deliver it to the Kremlin.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? I think in Vance's case, he may not even necessarily have compromise on him. They may not necessarily even be paying him to date.
They don't have to.
They don't have to. His mentors are aligned. His mentors and supporter funders like Thiel and others, they have financial interests and maybe ideological interests in that alignment and possibly compromise. But probably it's more, they can make money out of it. But it strikes me that Vance is someone who is auditioning. He's like, look at me. Like, I can't compete in a democratic system. I can't compete in a level playing field. Therefore, I have to gerrymander the system. I have to get additional support. I have to break the rules to get to power. And that, let's be clear, that's what he wants. And I think he's auditioning to Russia. Hey, look at me. When you're done with this guy, Trump, because let's face it, he's fucking up quite badly.
Jonathan, I think you're right. I think you're right. You know why? In my opinion, J.D. Vance is not very popular with the MAGA electorate. Yes, he's popular with some of the inner circle and all of that, and MAGA is going to support him. But with the electorate, J.D. Vance isn't popular. I don't know if you've seen him on the road giving speeches. He gets booed a lot. So he knows there's competition for 2028. And you're right. I think he's auditioning. I think he's trying to drum up support specifically from the Kremlin, not so much from the American public. He knows he's not going to increase his popularity no matter what he does outside of this, the hardcore MAGA. So I think you're absolutely right. He's auditioning because he doesn't think his chances are that great in 2028 without some real help from Moscow.
That's right. I think he's not wrong there. He's smart enough to do that. We're discussing. I mean, this last little bit here. I was discussing with Konstantin. I have these conversations with Konstantin, and that's going up tonight, about the psychological impact, the political impact of when Putin loses the war. And Konstantin's view is that even before the Russian army is forced to retreat from Ukrainian territory, which I think is going to happen later this year, you're going to see some First World War style collapse, that actually Putin will be dead in a ditch before the humiliation of that even lands. What is this going to do? The fall of the Putin regime, what effect is that going to have on the Republican Party, which has been co-opted, corrupted? This is the hidden story, I think, which Ben Marcellus and others have talked about extensively, and Scaramucci and others. The hidden story is, how did the Republican Party become corrupted and co-opted by the Kremlin over a couple of decades? What's going to happen when the Kremlin loses its grip?
I don't think the Kremlin's going to lose their grip. I mean, and we've discussed this a lot, as have many, many other people on social media. When Putin goes, regardless of how he leaves, the person that takes over for him very likely will be another hardliner. And I think they're going to know which side their bread is buttered on as well. And they are going to, I think, continue support of the Republicans in America. At least that's my strong opinion. Why would they, leave the golden goose go? Why wouldn't they want to continue to have control over the United States if they can do that so easily? Apparently, maybe not by even paying a lot of money, maybe just by supporting some sycophant fool and traitor like a J.D. Vance. So I think when Putin goes, it's not going to decrease the leverage that the Kremlin has over the United States. That's horrible, but that's what I believe.
And we're, of course, heading for the elections. And it seems that Trump, and especially Vance, as you said, are historically unpopular. If there's to be a landslide, how is this going to pan out? Because Democrats, and we've talked about this a lot, they can be extraordinarily weak. If only they had the strength of, say, the guys behind the Lincoln Project. I'm not saying I'd agree with their politics, but they're very effective and they're vicious in tackling Trump. If only the Democrats could, like, as they say in Britain, grow a pair and really go after Trump, Are there any figures that you can see are going to say, okay, well, if we really dominate the Senate, if it's an absolute landslide, which the data is suggesting, are there figures there who will launch effective investigations, who will really get to grips
Yeah.
with what's been going on?
I'm glad you brought it up, because in the few minutes we have left, I wanted to bring in some new news actually about that. The chances of a landslide now are decreasing every day. Why? The Republicans, for example, Florida just passed a massive redistricting, gerrymandering map that just happened today or yesterday. Tennessee, the governor there has just said that she is going to try to eliminate all Democratic congressional seats in the state. So it's all Republican. And Louisiana has canceled their primaries so they can gerrymander the state there. So there's no Democrat chances of winning. So the chance of a landslide now for the Democrats is decreasing every day. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen. But as you said, Democrats haven't recently shown a spine. So I don't know what they're going to do about this. Oh, and Virginia, by the way, who did successfully draw their map to favor the Democrats, the Virginia State Court just refused to certify the map. So they didn't gain any new Democratic congressional seats. So, like I said, things are not looking good right now for November and the Democrats. And before we go, I just want to ask some folks, I'm going to be interviewing Adam Dunnigan, a Democrat congressional candidate for Virginia. I've interviewed him before. He's going to be here at 10 o'clock Eastern time, which is 3 p.m. UK time. So please, folks, come back to the No Delusion Zone on YouTube and watch my new interview with Adam Dunnigan. We're going to be discussing that, Jonathan, the failure of the redistricting map that gave Virginia, I think it was 4 or 5 additional seats in Congress. It's been not overturned. They won't certify it now.
That's not good news, of course, because what we need is absolute, endless, and forensic probing of the incredible corruption. Because let's remember, Trump will still be in charge. He will still have access and leverage to that massive corruption. And we have a year and a half of stuff to investigate, including his first term, which unfortunately that was not brought to a head. I mean, Biden and his team were criminally negligent in not in actually, I think, purposefully delaying it, kicking it into the long grass so they wouldn't have to deal with it. It was weak and supine, and a massive dereliction of duty. That can't happen again. Otherwise, I fear that there'll be no way back to the democratic value. Coming back to King Charles's speech, there'll be no way back to recover that sort of democratic process, checks and balances, a sense of ideals, and extremists will always be with us, but they should remain on the margins. And there'll be no way to snap back to that if this criminality isn't held to account.
This election is everything, Jonathan, whether it's because the new gerrymandered maps are in favor of the Republicans, whether or not the Republicans control the voting system in the fall and again in 28. However it happens, if the Republicans maintain their death grip on the government here, our democracy, our constitutional republic is dead. And I'm not alone in that belief. This is an existential crisis, an existential time, meaning these 2 elections, most importantly, this one in November, the congressional and Senate elections. If the Republicans continue or even increase their hold on the Congress, the Senate and House of Representatives, basically it's all over, because then they will win in 2028, because they'll ensure that they never lose again. That's my last word on this for today.
And we'll pick these themes up in our next episodes for today, though. I think that's all we got time for. And join us again tomorrow.
You have to toodaloo. So thank you again, folks. 10 o'clock Eastern, 3 p.m. UK time for Adam Dunnigan, my interview coming up. Thank you, Jonathan. Have a good trip. And to all of you, stay safe and stay sane if possible.